Okay, so hopefully I can see you. All right, so welcome, Melody. It's really nice to see you. So we want to just do a sound check that I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. So exciting.
Perfect. My pleasure. Okay, yeah, there's a picture. Okay, so Melody has a really interesting story. My name is Barbie Layton, and I'm here at the Best View Virtual Expo in Miami. It's the first one in 2021, the big kickoff for a brand new year. So Melody Lee, at 4 years old, she was a boat refugee and left Vietnam with her parents to live in Melbourne, Australia. She was painfully shy and insecure as a child. She discovered that in life you have to take risks and bet on yourself. You must make the first move because no one's going to make it for you. She took a huge leap of faith to become a consultant for Bob Proctor, the #1 prosperity teacher in the world and law of attraction teacher. She's a facilitator for Bob Proctor's Thinking into Results program. Today, she's passionate about working with women who have a deep desire that they want to bring to life and help them develop a fierce belief in themselves to realize their dreams. When we empower women, we empower generations. So that's definitely a beautiful intro. And I actually ended up meeting Melody through a co-person that was actually a Best You speaker of Kat Vixen DeVille. And so from Vixen DeVille, I was able to find Melody's summit. So she did a virtual summit with a lot of really cool thinkers in Australia. And from there, I just realized that, she had a story to tell, but for the most part, a lot of her story is to tell the story of other people, to help them to become the best version of themselves, etc. And initially I had asked her whether or not she wanted to, be interviewed and be, brought on to the TV show that I'm going to be having later on in the year. And it was just something she was taken aback by why I would be asking her. And the funny part is initially that I think that she thought I was kind of like annoying her and trying to just like, who is this person? Why does she keep bothering me? But it was like, no, I really want to know about your story. And so she had kind of a paradigm shift, which was lovely. And so what I told her is that her story, in addition to the assistance and help that she's giving to other women and other people that she's helping, is as valid and as important as the work that she's doing with other people. So my invitation to her today was for her to come and talk about herself, which she told me she really doesn't ever do. And so that's kind of out of, it's easy to talk about other people, right? But, sometimes we have to take it to ourselves. But I feel like your story is something that is really, really important to be known by people. And I think that you're such an inspiration, and you have really, when I've read the bios and things that you've gone through so many things. But it's interesting how a lot of times I feel like our experiences, we minimize them because it's just our life and it's just what we went through. And so I'll put it to you in the sense of what do you think was the #1 thing that allowed you to pivot to become the adult woman that you've become now?
It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of personal development, and it's kind of like started when my son was 2, and I was just sitting there and I was just thinking, like, I don't want to go back to work. I wanted to go back and do financial planning and work like 9 to 9, literally finishing at 9 o'clock. And my daughter at that time, I had a daughter from my first husband. Um, she was being looked after by my mum as soon as she was born, literally. And my first husband was working in the bakery. He was working 20-hour shifts. I was working financial planning and studying at the same time. So when I had my second son, I just wondered, like, there must be more to this. I didn't want to go back and, do that kind of work. And so I always growing up wanted to, be a business person. And that's where it really started. And having a mentor to mentor me, to actually help me to, like, tell me kind of like the story of, like, My Fair Lady, where it's like, Audrey Hepburn feeling it, and being picked up and then taken and really kind of polished and shined and, become this amazing, lady. And so I knew there was something there that I wanted to reach and, really change and be someone else. But, not knowing what it was. And personal development, I think, was the first step for me. It's kind of like, I knew that these people who had been in the personal development game lived really exciting lives. They were creating things, they were doing things, and kind of like having their own adventure. And so that's where it really started for me. But it took me a while. because there's so much out there. You know, you can see on even MindValley, like there's so many amazing people. There's so many different, you know, routes you can take. And so it took me a while to really find, eventually, you know, come back to the principles of life. There are rules for life. You know, life is a game and there are rules. So eventually I discovered, like, you know, The Secret, and it took me to Bob Proctor, because, like, you know, he teaches the fundamental principles, and everything goes back to the source, you know, goes back to the Bible and all the scriptures, and all those things. So that's where I basically started from there. And it's taken me here, you know, to learning and sharing at the same time, applying it to my own life. Yeah.
And how do you think that, I know that your parents, you can describe this story, but I know that when you and I talked about it, the harrowing experience that they had, I know you told me that your parents were like, yeah, that, you know, that's what happened to us. It's like no big whoop.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, so tell our audience, like, I mean, the story that you told about what you experienced, having worked with, you know, Vietnamese refugees for 3 decades, I really totally resonated for so many stories that many people don't really want to face any longer because it's painful. But I think it's also really helpful to show the triumph over this adversity and the tragedy on that. So if you want to just tell our audience, like, how you ended up in Melbourne, because it was a really dramatic experience.
Yeah, I was 4, and I honestly don't remember anything about it. I've only just, like, you know, through the stories that we hear, kind of like, you know, campfire stories, parents and grandparents, uncles and aunties. Um, and really interesting, it's like, as you said, you know, it's just only recently, a couple of years ago, and my dad said, yeah, you know, 3 ships left on that shore that night, and only ours arrived in the Malaysia refugee camp. And I was like, it's like, really? It's like, you know, only ours arrived. And, you know, there was hundreds of ships that left, and there's only a small proportion, you know, arrived in that day. And it was a 3-day, like 3-night journey. And that's the maximum. Like, you know, if you arrive in that time, that's the best. If the captain is experienced, he's taken the best route, 3 nights, and we're there. And on the last night, we were pursued by pirates, and the captain was very experienced, and he hit us in the fog bank. And that, at that very moment, with the lights out and the sound was turned off and everything, everybody had to, you know, basically shut up and shoot, no talking. Pregnant lady goes into labour, and she has a baby. The captain delivers her baby right that very moment in the pitch darkness, trying to steer us to safety, you know, and keep us, you know, safe from the pirates. And then the next day we arrived there at the refugee camp, and because you can't park too close to the beach, everybody has to get off, and the lady, you know, who's just had a baby overnight has to carry a baby water up to her neck, you know, walk to the shore. And, you know, and that's kind of like, you know, I hear all these stories, and it's just really fascinating. And yet my parents are just here, yeah, we arrived, got here, kind of like, you know, thing is like, oh my God, it's like, you know, we made it. And then after that, you know, they arrived in Australia. It's just like hard work. And I'm very grateful that they have such strong work ethics, you know, working really hard and working, you know, 2 jobs. And my mum used to have to travel like, you know, 2 hours to get to her job, because she didn't know how to drive. She had to catch public transport, and even on the weekends, you know, waiting like an hour sometimes just to get to where she wanted to go. And it was just growing up in a housing commission flat until I was about, I think, in year 10. And then, you know, moving to the other side of town and still going back to the same high school and traveling like, you know, 2 hours sometimes just to get to school, another 2 hours to get back home. By the time I get back home, I'm like exhausted. And that's kind of like the journey that I know a lot of my friends gone through. But growing up, I was very insecure because I was comparing myself, you know, to a lot of my friends who are now like doctors and dentists and lawyers, who were established. They had parents who are working, you know, in careers or established, not like my parents who are working in factories. And at one point I had a boyfriend who was Australian, and I think he came in year 8 or 9 into high school from Sydney, and he invited me to his house for dinner. He loved me so much. I remember he saying, like, you know, as soon as I saw you, I just loved and fell in love with you. He said, you're so
Aw.
endearing. And then one day he invited me to his house, and his dad was a barrister. He's this big man. And we sat down for dinner, and his dad said, "So what does your dad do?" And I was like, shit, it's over. My dad's a Triumph driver. It's like, oh no, it's like I was in tears, like crying, right? It's like, oh my God. And that was just terrible. So for me, it's like there's so many stories that has happened, and it's only until recently that through all this personal development, I realized that sometimes all these stories that's in your head, all these events, like, you know, losing money in business venture, having a tax audit, you know, having a controlling husband who was kind of like, you know, a copy of my dad, all these things happen. You think like, you know, a series of unfortunate events, but it all stems back to your self-worth. Like, you know, stems back to my self-worth, stems back to what happened in the past. And it's not until you kind of like sit back and you realize, oh, it's like watching your own movie. Oh, okay. So all these things are happening. It's kind of like going on a merry-go-round and going again and again. It's like deja vu. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? It's only until you have a good look at it and you realize, okay, I need to shift something. I need to kind of like, you know, look at my life in a different set of filters. I really need to change my beliefs. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on going on merry-go-round again and again, and not really realizing that I could have got off. I could have, you know, really decided and changed things. And that's where personal development has come in, you know, in studying and learning all these things. But it's taken me a while. I'm still on that journey. And it's great that you reached out, and it actually, you know, you triggered something, and I just kind of like, I saw this whole, my life in front of me, and that's where I created that little video. And I suddenly was just like, whoa, so clear. And I want to, yeah.
It's interesting too. I think that a lot of times I think like, you know, when you have the immigrant experience, that you see the people that are already established, in some ways they don't know that they take for granted what they take for granted because it's just everything they've experienced. But I know like on my mom's side, we were, you know, nobility and Baltic Germans and the Baltic states and Latvia, and lost everything. But I know that in the 50s, you know, my mom emigrated to Canada, and at 7 years old, she didn't speak a word of English at all and had to learn it on her own, with two parents that were working, and they lived on one flat, you know, like apartment building with one bathroom for the whole floor. And basically, you know, my grandfather, despite the fact that they were very wealthy, he moved furniture and he cleaned offices. And my grandmother, she ended up becoming an accountant with the Ontario government, because she spoke 8 languages and she could assist in those things. But I think one of the things I think is so amazing about the immigrant experience is the fact that immigrants don't look at jobs down their noses. They look at jobs as opportunities. They see like, this is going to make me money to be able to allow me to do that. Okay. And then I'm going to build my cleaning business. And then your dad being a tram driver, your mom pretty much, you know, being in line for the 2 hours to go to the public transit to do that. They did what they needed to do because they needed to do it. And they didn't like sit there and argue with that as to whether or not it was beneath them or above them. It was that they were, you know, it was just a lot of times, I don't know if I would say necessarily that a lot of immigrants have gratitude from it, but it's just that they're going to do what it takes. They're going to make the hard work happen. But I think that also gives an opportunity to see things through your ancestors' lens, like your parents' lens, and the way that they had to struggle in a different way. And then when you become successful, it's almost like, I think every parent and family unit wants you to be more successful than the generation before. So it's like you become a success story within your family, of where it's not about the lawyer and the doctor and the dentist and all that other kind of stuff. It's the fact that, I mean, you know, you're a world-renowned consultant for an incredibly, you know, prestigious person, but it's still that kind of growth work of the child within feeling like they were inadequate because somehow it's like, you know, because your young self is like, damn, I missed out on this awesome guy because my dad had a crappy job. But by the same token, you know, you had a roof over your head. So it's like these weird things of where we perceive them in a different way, but our success is actually, it becomes a blessing because we know where we came from.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we, I guess, you know, as you say, like, you know, they didn't actually look at the jobs and kind of like, you know, saying beneath them, anything like that. and nowadays, like, you know, people are really like looking at jobs and they're attaching to their identity too much.
Correct.
You know, this is who I am. And, you know, if I go any lower, or if I change, or I completely do a fresh makeover and really go for my heart, then it's going to really, you know, reflect on like, you know, do I really know who I am? And that's not who people think I am. And, you know, you kind of like get lost into other people's expectations and for you. And you know, my parents, you know, frankly, they didn't know what they really want to do. And they was probably too scared because it's just survival. I remember my dad wanting to actually go out and, you know, do jewelry and stuff. And he would just end up just playing with it and tinkering it and not really letting go, and pursuing it like my uncle did, and having a thriving jewelry business because, you know, he wanted to keep the, you know, mouths fed. And so they didn't have that luxury. I'm a risk taker. And so I really wanted to jump into that and, you know, try something different because I think what scares me more is like, you know, repeating the history of the past. And I know that they want to really stretch it. So, and that's where it is like, you know, I think a lot of people do associate that with the identity, and they're too afraid to really let go and go out. At the same time, being from a refugee background and seeing all my parents, it's given me a lot of compassion to really understand where people are coming from. And people are who they are because of sometimes, you know, the past and the things that's happened to them as a child, and being compassionate to understand, like, you know, the way that they think, the way that they do things. You know, there is a reason. There's a reason to it. And that's helped me to really, you know, get to open up the possibilities and hold people higher, and to see a bigger standard, you know, standing the vision, rather than just seeing it things for face value. And that's really helped me a lot. Yeah.
Well, and I really appreciate you saying that, because I think also like one of the things in my talk that I did today was that, you know, I really believe in being present with everybody. And it's like, I was talking yesterday about the fact that I have to laugh that everybody has the same Zoom box. Doesn't matter if you're a president of a country or a homeschool kindergartner, you get the same Zoom box as everybody else. And so in some ways it's like Zoom is the great equalizer, where it makes people humble, where it's like, it doesn't care about how much money you make and what your title is, etc. But it's interesting that I've had 2 podcast episodes where I was featured as a guest the last 2 weeks. And I know that the second lady, and there are a couple other people too, they asked me like, you know, what is it that you do? And, you know, I do have a respectable day job that I'm not afraid of or ashamed of. And I like it. And, you know, I do really well at it. But I don't tell people about what it is because, again, like what you were saying, it's like, it's these labels of where once somebody has this idea, it's like they feel like they can put you into a category. And then once you're this, then you're that, and then you're this, and then you're that. And I would just prefer personally to focus on what your journey is. Like, what is your journey? What is something that really turns you on as a human being that you would like to be able to focus on? And, you know, I know someone right now focusing on exactly that in the business world, and he's calling it the UPP. It's like, what is your passion project? What are you working on, et cetera? And that's something of where I wish that our focus could be on those things, et cetera, because I think sometimes people hide behind the label of what the job is and feel like the prestige of it, or where people feel like they have attained a certain thing. But then, you know, I'll do an intuitive life coaching session with somebody who's in that situation that appears to have everything, and they're miserable because it looks nice, but it doesn't feel, in the heart, they don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel satisfied. They don't feel loved. They don't feel like they're accepted. So a lot of those outer trappings are also in some ways totally an illusion.
Yeah, it is. And because sometimes they feel like they've got to maintain that status. And it's like, you know, they need to go to the next step. Every year people expect them to go to the next step. Whereas sometimes they're still struggling with this step and trying to keep the, you know, the foundation solid. And the next step, you know, it's scary for them. They don't want to go there. They just want to have a breather and just really, you know, start to enjoy the fruits of their labor. But some people are scared. They just don't want to do that because it seems as if people may think that they're actually going backwards. Hey, like, you know, what's happening? You know, and that's the thing. Like, you know, you've got to supposed to be upgrading your house, upgrading your car. You got to do. But then you just look at people like Warren Buffett. It's like, he's been living in the same house all this time. He's been driving an old same bomb, and he doesn't care. Like, if anything happens, he would just switch off the TV and he would just go somewhere and, you know, think about what is important for him. And how many times do we do that? You know, we don't have that luxury. That is a luxury. That is a real luxury, to really think about what is important for you. What do you really
Oh
want?
yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. And I know even like in Maui, my dad used to live off the sugarcane plantations by the golf course in a beautiful area. And I was laughing because all the millionaires there, they drive beat up trucks, they drive beat up stuff. They have like the old Hawaiian shirt, they've got the wrinkled, you know, like the khaki travelers shorts with the big pockets, and then the Birkenstocks or whatever else. And they look like they're bums. They look like total bums. And I was like, that's interesting. He's like, yeah, that's just Hawaii. Like the homeless people and the rich people, they look a lot of times the same and nobody cares because it's just Hawaii and you're just kind of doing your thing. And it's like, it's a funny thing. And I know you and I come from that same vibe of where, as you can see, it's like for me, I like color and I like the psychology of it. And I like all the transmutation of the life force and, you know, getting that chi energy up, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, you and I both totally vibe on that characteristic because we feel that that's important. But to other people, they're like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And if it's cool, cool. And if it's not, I don't care. Right.
Yeah. It's a great way, and it's kind of like very bold way and brave way to be living in the way that you feel is important to you and alignment to you,
Sure.
as
Sure.
opposed to living, you know, according to the expectations and, like, you know, what's on trend, what's in fashion, and all these things. And I realize that a lot of people find that quite scary, just to connect back and slow down a bit and look at what do they really want. And yeah, because of there's so much out there, you know, social media and everything that's blaring in their face. This is what you should be. This is what you should be wearing. This is what you should, you know, look like. Your family unit has to look like this, and this is what success means.
But that's, I'm finding almost like when I deal with clients with that though, I feel like the social media perfection model of where when you have a picture of like your beautiful children and then you have a horrible, like, you know, you're not happy or you're depressed or suicidal. I think in some ways it's almost creating a schizophrenic society because
Yeah.
people are posting their avatars of their perfect lives, but yet they're in this desperate place of where nothing is really working. But this is the picture that everybody is supposed to think that's great. But then you have all these like young girls who are looking at, you know, I mean, they keep changing their body shapes and they keep photoshopping and changing and things like that. Or people, you know, like girls who get like plastic surgery to look like their Snapchat filter so that it looks
Yeah.
like the picture that they put forward. Those are the things that I think get a little bit dangerous because it's not authentic. And, you know, like with me dressing up, it's like, you know, tomorrow I can wear something completely different. That's what I love about fashion. It's like it's wearable art and you know, you dance to the beat of whatever your own drum is. And I love having my own individual style. But by the same token, on a regular basis, I'm not running around by myself dressed like this. It's like this is also a presentation of where I bring a particular energy forward when I'm in a, you know, in front of an audience, et cetera. And I know you do the same. So it's kind of like for some people that freedom, but by the same token, a lot of the people who end up in that sense, they also, it doesn't matter how much money they have, they also in some ways get very stagnant in their thinking because they're not evolving. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like by saying, I don't care, I've got enough money to deal with whatever. In some ways, I feel like that money also or abundance creates almost a complacency of where they don't feel like they need to change at all.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how I research more about money. Like for me growing up, money was like the physical form of money. And it's only when after I do a lot of these, you know, as you know, well, that spiritual connection to understand that, you know, a money is just one form of
Oh
abundance, it's
yeah.
one form of
Oh yeah.
prosperity.
Hmm.
And as I said in my story, it's like, you know, suddenly taking it back, look at it and realizing, wow, I have been rich because, you know, all these, you know, challenges are also, you know, disguised. They're also blessings in disguise. And it's only when you can see this and you realize, oh, wow, you know, I was blessed with that boyfriend, you know, even though I didn't continue, like that was me sabotaging it, but I was given all these opportunities along the way. And that's the thing, we need to look at ourselves and not just the money that we have, but, you know, the family, the health, the connections that you have, you know, all the opportunities, all those things come in, you know, are all abundance and all riches. And we are born rich. We are so rich than we realize. We've got the mental faculties. I was listening to Ogmandino the other day, and he's got a book which is the greatest miracle, and he says you are a miracle. You got your eyes. I mean, how much would you pay if you have your eyes?
Yeah.
Would you pay $1 million? And for your hands and for your feet that take you to places, be able to walk and explore and it really put things into perspective. And often we don't do that, and it's just so powerful. And so that's where I through this, I think the more I study this, more I realize that we are so rich, we are so much abundant. And that's where you've got to have that solid foundation before you can actually go forward, and know that just on your own, it's just who you are, and you have got everything that you want, and then all the other things are bonuses, and that's a really great mindset to have. So yeah, so definitely putting things in perspective is so beautiful.
No, I totally, I love that you just said that. That was such a, I mean, you should put that on a bumper sticker. That's like, that should be in your book. Just really quickly, are there any people in the panel that have questions that they would like to ask Melody? If you would like to ask a question, feel free to tell Karen that you would like to ask a question. You can be unmuted.
Is anybody here from a migrant background or anything?
I know right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people from the MindValley premium coaching group, and then 2 people that I'm not familiar with that may be from either MindValley or from your group.
Oh, okay. Right.
So anyone in the chat that would like to ask a question? There's a chat. Anyone want to be unmuted?
So what's the MindValley premium coaching?
So it's Vishen's brainchild. He came up with it last February. It's brand new. There's only the first cohort is graduating at the end of February, and he started it. And then the next cohort was us, which was basically in August. There's 40 of us, and then they added 15. So it's a total of 60 people that are the only international MindValley premium coaching group, and it is the most phenomenal group of human beings. It's so expansive, so amazing, so wonderful, just great people who we're trying to live in a model of the world without being held back. So we are all supporting each other with all of our different projects. Yeah, go ahead, Ash. Feel free. You can, Karen, can you unmute Ash? Ash would like to ask a question.
Hi, Ash.
Hi, Melody, and thank you, Barbie. My question is, Melody, what was the moment when your mind shift was happened, when instead of being embarrassed with the truth of your parents, you embraced it? You started appreciating it, when you were telling the story, how you went to your Australian boyfriend and you were thinking like, oops, I have to tell it. And then there is a mind shift like right now, as you are appreciating their hard work. What was that turning point for you?
It took me a while, and it's only just recently, last year, I told my dad and my mum, was just having a chat with them, and I said, did you know that I was so embarrassed? I told them incident, and I said, I told him that you were a tram driver, and my dad just laughed. He's just like, he laughed. My mom just laughed, and we were all having a good laugh at it. And it's really funny. And it's just, I think, through all this personal development, I realized that, we are all the same. And I've been to a lot of, coaching. I've been to, T. Harv Eker's coaching programs, the Quantum Leap, Anthony Robbins, leadership, and all these programs. And I remember, no matter which program I go to, I always find that everyone has a problem. Everybody has a situation that they're dealing with. It could have been their past. It could have been, where they've had a disconnect with a family member, with their parents, or they've had some childhood trauma and all these things. And when you go and you come away from it, you realize that we're all human. Nobody is higher, nobody is lower. And if you really work with and you get to know all these people, and you love them, you know, unconditionally, compassionately, you open yourself up to that space, you realize we're all the same. You know, we're all the same. Look, you know, the child of the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. And I just look at it and just like, you know, it's like I say, like, you know, talk to my parents, hey, you know, I see you as a tram driver and I was so embarrassed, I dumped him. And like, you know, just laugh. And I talk to so many people and, you know, everybody has something that they're working on. And if they are truly students of this work, they truly understand all these, you know, that, you know, we are all moving towards the best version of us. It doesn't matter where we are. We all have a goal. We all have a mission, that something is within us that's really calling us and yearning for this expression. Then you don't get embarrassed anymore. You don't get embarrassed anymore. You know, everybody's doing the best that they can do. And you, for yourself, it's your goal is to become the best version for you so that you can empower your family and change generations. It doesn't matter where you're starting from ground zero, somebody's starting from level 10. They're all working towards a better ideal. Right? So don't worry, you know, don't be ashamed. You know, I'm working towards my better ideal. I can, if you really focus on it, you can quantum leap, you know, go to the next level. But if you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're feeling like, you know, this is my story and this is like where I'm stuck. It's kind of like locking yourself in, and nobody's locking yourself in. You're kind of like standing with the bars in front of you and it's free all around you. And it's just humbling yourself and just being compassionate to yourself, compassionate to everybody around you. And just seeing we're all human. We're all human.
No, I do understand what you're saying because I'm raising my kids over here, and that's for us the first generation in America. Like, I have a medical background. I started my way in America. My first job was as a barista over here.
Yes,
So
I've been
they
barista.
don't feel embarrassed. I'm not saying they feel embarrassed or anything, but I was feeling like what a kid, like I started appreciating my parents when I became a mom. I realizing that it was not easy to raise a kid. It
Yes,
takes a lot of patience and a lot of unconditional love. The
yes,
kids, when they get frustrated, they said, I don't want to see you. I hate you, right? But a mom can't say that, right? A mom can't say that. You, before saying something bad, then you say sorry to God and say that, please, universe, do not take it seriously. I didn't mean to. You can't say ill words to your kids because it hurts you. You know that it's going to come back if something happens. So that's what I was thinking, like when my kids grow up, are they going to be embarrassed of my reality, or they're going to embrace it? Like Barbie was telling in the earlier thing, embrace it, replace it, and you were saying it, you embrace it, that truth, right? And now that's your backbone. Now you enjoy it, and you're saying that they did hard work, you're going through it. So for me, like, will I be able to see that my kids are going to appreciate it, or they will say that they will take it for granted? Oh, that's okay, all parents do that.
you know what? My daughter, she's a teenager, and you know
Yeah,
she's 20. So I understand where you're coming from, right?
mine
Because
is 17.
oh yeah, I've got a 10 and I've got a 20, and I've been through that teen years. And you know she wouldn't take a photo with me unless I am made up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's her kind of like, she has this model thing, and she's an international brand. She has an international clothing brand, so for her, looking good is very important.
Yeah,
The thing is, you can't control how she's going to think and see all
no,
this. We as parents, we can manage ourselves and do the best we can and love them unconditionally and be compassionate. I had to embrace a lot of love. I had to be very accepting of her and who she is. I don't go and I scream and yell, but I'll go in there and I'll see what is happening. She was from my first husband and divorced, you know, and
mm-hmm.
I from her dad. And so growing up, she had this situation where she's growing up and asking her identity, why did you leave my dad, you know? And they kind of like sometimes look at, you know, I must have not been good enough. you know, and they put it all to themselves, and they get angry with the world, and they have resentment. They have all these things that where they identify things, and they have the stories in their head, which makes it very hard just for you sometimes to reach in for them. But if you stay upset because of them, you hold your life and in resentment because of them, what happens is that you two will be like, you know, just constantly fighting. And so what you have to do is you have to show them that you are happy, you're living your life, you're going for your dreams, you're doing the best that you can be doing. And you be compassionate to them. You don't fight them or anything. You give them that space. You understand, you love them unconditionally for no matter what. That's the cost of being a parent. And you just show them through your own actions, you know. And I think that is the best thing you could do as a parent, because one day they will grow and they will suddenly realize. And when they become a parent themselves, they'll realize they can't control their kids. They can't be reactive anymore.
No, that's really wise, and really, that's what I believe. Subconsciously, they are saying it. I'm very calm. I really appreciate his own persona. I don't try to push my personality on him. I always say that, okay, whenever he says, "Mom, you don't understand what's going with me. I'm a boy," I always say, "Enlighten me with your knowledge." So I always try to respect his thoughts. And you're right, maybe subconsciously they are listening to us, they understand. And as we are grateful for our parents, they will be sometime they will understand what we are doing. And thank you. Thanks for taking time to answer me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All the best.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Ash. Is there anyone else that wants to ask a question? We have about 5 or 10 minutes left.
Thank you very much for the opportunity here. It's been amazing. So
absolutely. Before we end, I want you to tell them about the Bitches Out Academy, though.
Yeah. So as I was sitting there, this is a really funny story. You know, thank you very much. So it was like, you know, sitting there at that moment, I was thinking like, you know, I want to create this business. I want to create this brand. And the first step was like, you know, you've got to come up with a website. And so I was sitting across my daughter. She was 13 at that time. And I was sitting on the computer and I said, like, you know, what name am I going to come up with? I don't want to just use my own name. And so he came up with this voice. She said, "This bitch is out." And I'm thinking, whoa, let's go into the domain. Let's see if this is available. And it was available, right? And I told my daughter, I said, "What do you think of this name?" And she was like, "Yeah, go for it, Mom." So I was super proud of my daughter. And then I registered it. And as soon as I registered it, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm not a bitch. Like, who's going to, like, people are going, what are people going to think about me? Like, you know, I've always been this quiet girl, you know, and I've got and everybody thinks I'm so, you know, sweet and kind and everything like that. And suddenly, like, this brand is kind of like, whoa. And you suddenly have this image of Madonna or something, right? And it's like, you know, dressed up all crazy and everything. And it scared the shit out of me. And it's only after, like, you know, I pull it out, I tried it and like half-assed my way, tiptoe, and then like, you know, shelled it again. And then this year I realized that after doing some leadership training, that there is a purpose to everything. There is a lesson to that. And the lesson to it was that, you know, every one of us has this vision, which is bigger than us. It's so big that sometimes looking at it, you're thinking, oh my God, no way I'm going to go and, you know, fit that hat. It's so big. It's not me. It's not for me. Like, who do I think I am? I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't do this and all these things. And there's going to be every person, like, you know, have this kind of like the summit that they think that they can never conquer and climb. And that bitch is out is that analogy. And so I created this academy, and it's really helping women to remove a lot of the limitations and really have a good look at their life and see, you know, what is it they really want and what is it that is holding them back. And you'll find that there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of, like, you know, limiting beliefs, a lot of filters and things. And to really get to the next level in the summit, like, you have to really, you know, dig out all these roots and all these things that are in there, tying you down. It's kind of like, you know, little chains tying you down. And you got to let go of that before you can actually, you know, take the next step and really become that. And so that's where, like, you know, that Bitches Out Academy is forming now, and I'm putting it together. and you know, putting together all these life lessons and principles and all the things that I've been learning all my crazy days of going out there and going to boot camps and going overseas and studying. And I'm just crazy in that way. Like, you know, for me, like my family looks at me and say, my God, like, you know, what the hell are you doing? They don't understand, right? It's like, you know, what are you doing? Like going out and then doing all these things and talking to all those people, meeting all these people around the world. And it's like, and for me, it's just like a huge journey, self-discovery. And I wish that when I was young, I, you know, had someone that really had shook me and told me and say, look, this is how you get your life together. This is what you have to do. You know, the rules and the principles. Principles are timeless. They don't change, right? And I wish that somebody had said that and woken me up. And so that's my gift to the world, is really to help women to wake up, to realize that they have so much power within them and they could change generations. You know, you empower yourself first before you want to empower the next generations. And times are changing. You've got to shift with them. You know, you've got to really move with them all the time, constantly. And kids don't know any better. They're looking at us as role models. I adore my parents, and I know that they, you know, they've done the best they could do. But for me, it's like I have all these, you know, dreams and things that I get to shift. And my daughter, she's got an international clothing brand. She's not working. She created a clothing brand, and she's like, you know, amazing stuff. She's, you know, she's, last time she said, oh, I've got being paid by YouTube now because I've got, you know, 100,000 views or whatever like that. For them, it's so effortless.
I know. So awesome.
Yeah.
But
So
I also just, well, before we wrap up, I just want to basically, again, when you and I are chatting, you were like, well, what do I have to say about my life story? And I was like, what are you talking about, Melody? You have so much. So just type in the chat. Did you get something amazing out of listening to Melody's story? I mean, Melody, you are amazing. You have so much to share. And I know that this is just like the beginning of a conversation. It's like that this is not, you know, the last time that we're going to talk. And there's so much stuff of where, you know, you have so much to share just personally. People are saying, yes, amazing story. Thank you for sharing. She's amazing. So great. So beautiful. It's like, these are the kind of things of where I just want to reflect this back to you. That to me is like, that's one of my gifts, is that I feel like I'm a presence healer where I allow myself to reflect what I see to somebody back to themselves. And it's something that I absolutely love to do. So just, you know, just, you need to keep up all this amazing work. I know that Karen, the hostess elf that we have, she wanted to know if you could just tell people what your contact information is if they want to get in touch with you. And I just appreciate your time of being able to have a chat. And I think that this is just, you know, 2021, I feel is going to be on fire for you, and you have so much to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a Facebook group that I have, and I can just pop the details into there if people want to connect with me. And it's, you know, I'm in the process of really looking at this and really blowing it up. And through the leadership training, I feel like, you know, I've unshackled a lot of chains. And it's really, you know, it's kind of like a like, you feel like, you know, when you kind of like, you know, letting go, and there's this beautiful moment when you're just stepping off the side of the ramp. You're like, you know, I went diving the other day, and standing there, you have this feeling. It's like, oh my God, you know what? But all you have to do is just let go, and the rest will take care of it. And that's where I feel like at the moment.
Right. And there's so much beauty in the nuggets of things that you're talking about. And I mean, you know, 3 of those you could have, you know, you need to put as quotes into your book about the unshackled chains. And I know that apparently with the cloud for Zoom calls, it takes about 24 to 48 hours to be able to get the recording of that. But once I have that, I'd be more than happy to send that. I love to also share that with our premium coaching group too, for people who weren't able to tune in because it's Europe time or in other places. But that way they can also celebrate the beautiful story that you have to share. And again, like I said, it's just onward and upward. And I'm so grateful to have made your acquaintance and to become friends. And I just see such bright things in your future. And I'm so happy for you, and just so grateful that we connected, and that you also knew that my niceness and my kindness wasn't a trick.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's not about, I think so much of it is about a trick, but it's like me reflecting back and saying, oh my God, what do I have to share? It's like, you know, and because you're so used to living in your life and you don't see all the beautiful gems that you have, you know. So I think, everybody take the time to go back and celebrate all the things. As you said, you do that with your clients too.
Yes.
So thank you so much for this opportunity. You've been amazing. You're such a beautiful person.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, happy 2021. It's just started 16 days ago, and this is going to be a woohoo! This is going to be an amazing year for so many people. So I'm so excited.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Love you.
Talk to you later.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks everyone for coming.